races down, 2 sprints completed, and we're not even halfway through the 2025 F1 season. Our first trip to Europe is complete after another intense triple header through Imola, Monaco and Spain. With just over a week off to recover, we're now about ready to head to a firm favourite in the calendar. Round 10 in Montreal, Canada at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I'm Harry Benjamin and this is 5 Live Formula One. It's the Canadian Grand Prix weekend ahead of the 44th race held at this venue, and we, as always, have a little bit to talk about. And to help me through it is BBC F1's Jenny Gow, reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. We are sort of 9 races through. We're not halfway yet, Abby, but it feels like it's been a full-on season. How have you enjoyed it so far?
I think it's been really enjoyable, obviously, to see what McLaren are doing and having a new team kind of battling at the front, as well as some inter-team rivalries, seeing the development for some of the rookies as well. Some names up there. Isaac Hadjar, I think, one of the notable ones. Kimi struggling a bit in the last few races, but it's been, in my opinion, one of the more exciting seasons we've had in a while.
Yeah, Jenny, would you agree?
Yep, absolutely, 100%. I think the intrigue with the teams, teammates, inter-teammates, as you say, there's a lot to pick out when you go through it. And I went through a lot of the stats coming into this weekend. And looking back, you go, oh, crikey, China was that long ago? I mean, it seems like forever since we were talking about Lewis Hamilton winning a sprint race, and was this, the start of a whole new Ferrari era. And you think back to those moments and you go, oh yeah, a lot has happened so far.
I mean, Andrew, we were really giving it the big sell right ahead of the season that this was going to be one of the best yet, really tight. Has it delivered so far, in your opinion?
It's not lived up to the expectations that everybody had for it. We were expecting a 4-team fight for the championship after the end of last season. If you remember the second half of 2024, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren were all in the fight at various races. Ferrari were predicting that they'd win at least one world championship going into this year. As it's turned out, McLaren have stolen a march on everybody with their car, and they've kind of left everyone a little bit breathless, apart from Max Verstappen on a certain kind of circuit. And that's put a lot of pressure on all the teams that aren't McLaren, and it's left the championship fight effectively being between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, with sort of Max Verstappen trying to hang on by his fingernails.
Lots to talk about, though.
I agree, though, with what Benny was saying, is that we all thought this season was going to be spectacular, and that's what it was billed as. And if you reference it back to that point, then no, there aren't 4 teams fighting at the front and loads of different wins going loads of different ways, but actually it's giving us the intrigue in a different form. We thought it might be closer. We'll have to wait until next year. I think the new regulations coming in for that to maybe happen, but actually the McLaren's battling it out, Max Verstappen being a naughty boy and trying to take wins away from them as well, and just watching the Ferrari capitulate once again. I mean, there is a lot when you have to unpack all of that, but it's not the grand finish that we were hoping for this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of McLaren's year, of course, but I think that the racing has been quite close, especially in the midfield. There's some teams that have made some really big strides in their performance, and I've just really enjoyed seeing the rookies as well and seeing how they'll take to it. I think probably because, in myself, I'm a junior driver coming up, and they've, made that first step into the pinnacle of the sport. So I've enjoyed seeing the new faces on the grid. And
we're seeing sort of real flip-flops from race to race, aren't we? Especially in that midfield pack, with who's strong and then who's suddenly on the back foot. And it is by a tenth sometimes that separates 5 cars in qualifying. So we are really enjoying that. In amongst it, lots of talk this season about boring races and circuits where you can't overtake, Imola, Monaco, but we're through all that. The circuit Gilles Villeneuve, though, Jen, is a firm favourite, isn't it? With a lot of history too.
So my first race in F1 was in Canada 2011. I couldn't have...
Give us the context.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better race to fill in for. I knew no one in the paddock. It was obviously the longest race in F1 history at 4 hours and 4 minutes and 39 seconds. The rain came in. Jenson Button was... ended up last and then came through the field. Final lap, he got past Sebastian Vettel and won. And the whole of the press pen erupted in applause because it was a magnificent win. And, you know, it took so much concentration for a driver. I can't even begin to imagine how you go about getting your concentration back into the game when you've been at the back. The rain's calm. There were, I think, 6 red flags. It was just a crazy race. So that was my baptism into F1, and I've enjoyed every single race in Canada since then. And there have been some absolute, I just think when you go there, you never quite know what to expect, and that's what we love.
4 hours, 4 minutes and 39.537 seconds.
And it really annoys me that they didn't just let it go. Why would they not just let it go till 4 hours, 4 minutes and 4 seconds? I mean, just
40, yeah.
Just wait that 1 millisecond.
But that's not the way it works, is it?
Yeah,
I mean,
but this is F1.
I remember that, and it was spectacular. I mean, Abby, we were talking earlier in FP1. F1 Academy are there for the first time this season. They haven't been there before. Are you a bit annoyed that you didn't get the chance to race there?
I mean, I think Canada is an awesome circuit. I've done a little bit on the simulator helping another driver prep for the race weekend, and it is...
Was it Lewis?
No, I wish. Actually helping Ella Lloyd out a little bit in F1 Academy, and it is such a cool circuit, and even just what goes on around the track. I mean, there's the lake and in the right next to the city. It is really, I think, very unique in that aspect, and it is a really fun circuit. I really enjoyed it. It's got high speed, low speed, although the chicanes are quite deceiving. They are higher speed than you think, and here obviously the long straights. So in F1 Academy will provide some really great racing, some slipstreaming, and I'm sure I am a bit envious of them.
Yeah. Well, look, F1 is about to take over Montreal and the Ile Notre Dame Island. This semi-permanent track races around. We've got a jam-packed show to get you up to speed with. I hope we've teased just a little bit there of what's to come. But along with that, Andrew sits down for an in-depth chat with McLaren's Lando Norris. We'll also hear from his teammate Oscar Piastri. After their collision in Spain, we'll get the thoughts of Max Verstappen and George Russell. And in between interviews drivers, Andrew has found time to run us through all the different types of groundhog we might be able to spy across the weekend. I think, Andrew, have you made it back to deliver us some all-important news on that front?
Yes, groundhog research is all complete, Harry. I can tell you. Actually, I think they're called marmots officially, but anyway, groundhogs is what everyone calls them around here. I haven't seen any of them dodging any Formula One cars yet, but I'm sure that'll come during the rest of the weekend.
And that's why you're the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew. Thank you very much. It is indeed a Marmota monax, apparently the only species native to North America. Who'd have thought it? Anyway, we'll move on. Let's bring you up to speed with the important stuff, how the standings look ahead of this weekend. After his win in Spain, McLaren's Oscar Piastri has built his advantage at the head of the championship, back up to 10 points over teammate Lando Norris, and taking a big hit after his penalty following the Barcelona race. Max Verstappen still third, now 49 points adrift from the top spot. In the constructors, McLaren's healthy advantage continues with 197 points lead over second place Ferrari. McLaren third, whilst Red Bull and Williams complete the top 5. Racing Bulls with a strong triple header are now 6th ahead of Haas, and Sauber jumped from last to 8th after points in Spain, relegating Aston Martin to 9th, and Alpine now 10th and last in the championship. I mentioned it there. Let's quickly cast our minds back to a couple of weeks ago and the fallout from Barcelona, that collision between George Russell and Max Verstappen. After the race, we were debating whether it was deliberate. Since the race, Verstappen has come out on social media saying the move was not right and shouldn't have happened. I mean, Abby, what were your thoughts on the incident and the penalty as a result?
I thought it was a little bit childish for Max Verstappen. It's nice to see that he's come out after that and he's spoke about it and said that it was wrong of him, but you know, in the moment we have these emotions, and it was quite upsetting to see because he's a role model to a lot of young racers watching, and lots of people look up to him. So to see him have that initial reaction, it could have ended in both of them DNFing or a puncture or something like that. So it's not a great look. Of course, it's nice to see him apologising, but it shouldn't necessarily be your first initial reaction to just drive into the side of your competitor. I mean, we all love Max and we all love his how aggressive he is. That's how he's, a 4-time world champion. But with that, he, also needs that maturity, I think.
Do you see that as a weakness of his?
No, I mean his aggression. People see him in his mirrors, and it's, people they're like, he's going to come past at some point, or he's going to put his nose in. So I think his aggression is a strength, but he needs to harness it and not make these silly decisions to, and it doesn't look great on him. It doesn't look great on the team. It's probably better he just kind of let that one go, to be honest.
Andrew, has this cost Verstappen quite dearly in the championship? Because obviously he's lost a chunk of points, but he's walking a bit of a tightrope now with his penalty points.
Yeah, 2 issues there, Harry. I think he lost 9 points as a consequence of that penalty that he received in Spain. That's dropped him quite a lot further back from the 2 McLaren drivers, and 11 penalty points on his licence at the moment. If he gets 12, so 1 more over the next 2 races, that's a race ban. And actually, he loses 2 points after that, but he's still got 9 all the way up to Mexico City at the end of October. So he has got to walk a tightrope. So I think the interesting thing about it is that he obviously lost his mind a little bit in that race, and we see this with Verstappen sometimes. Sequence of events, stress, that especially when he feels a sense of injustice, whether it's right or wrong, they can trigger him, and it's like a switch flicks in his brain. We saw it in Saudi Arabia in 2021 when he brake tested Lewis Hamilton. We saw it again in Spain 2 weeks ago when he drove into the side of George Russell after a sort of sequence of things that went wrong for him after what had been a good race. And I think it's in terms of the season as a whole, it's the last thing he needed. He's not got the quickest car. If he's going to stay in the championship, he has to deliver his maximum at every possible race, and then just hope that the points play out for him and the McLaren drivers drop some along the way as they're fighting for each other. His chance is to do a kind of what Alain Prost did in 1986 and sort of come between the 2 Williams drivers, Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell. If Piastri and Norris keep fighting, Verstappen has a chance to stay in the championship, but he's not going to do himself any good if he takes points off himself in this way.
Yeah, I feel like this is the first time, Jen, that Verstappen has left sort of big points on the table, but already, he's coming out with comments saying, why should I change, when asked about his approach going forward?
I think what was most revealing was his apology on the Monday, and actually taking to social media and saying, yeah, it shouldn't have happened. And I very rarely see Max take a step back and go, yeah, I got it wrong. But that was very clear that his messaging was, yes, I didn't get that right. It shouldn't have happened. And I think a lot of that was, as you say, his influence on younger people coming through the sport, and his realization that what he does on track, it's not affecting just him. It affects a raft of people coming through, looking up at him and seeing him setting the gold standard in racing. Now, he races hard. We all know that. Aggressively. He finds the grey areas. But this was a step over, and he realized that. And his admission of that, I feel like he did the right thing. And I think even George Russell said he was glad to hear him making that statement and being so proactive.
Yeah, I think the thing that frustrates me is just that realisation should probably have happened a little bit sooner.
Yes, but he's a male racer, and it sometimes takes someone asking the right question in the media pen to go, oh, maybe I didn't get that right. And I think it's hot-headed, isn't it?
Well, let's see what happens. He is, though, on that 11 penalty point system. One more, and he will get a race ban, as we were saying. It's a bit like getting points on your driver's licence. You rack up 12 within a year, and you get your licence taken away. In this case, it's a one-race ban. Kevin Magnussen is the most recent example of that from last year. So he has got to be on good behaviour for at least the next couple of races. So that incident was still quite a big talking point, as it seems, when the drivers did their media duties earlier today in Canada. We'll hear from Max Verstappen, but first, here's George Russell speaking about Verstappen's penalty points tightrope and his thoughts on the incident a couple of weeks on.
I didn't think he was trying to crash into me. I think he was just trying to get his elbows out and show who's boss. I think he just got it slightly wrong. In racing, at the end of the day, if you take on risky moves and you get it wrong, you get penalised. And if you get, like you said, you get your your points, you'll be banned for a race. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and say X, Y, Z because it's ultimately not really my problem. It's his problem. I'm looking forward to the weekend and go from there. But that's racing.
We all saw Max's social post a couple of days after the race. What did you make of that? Has he reached out directly, and where do you go from here?
I don't really go anywhere, to be honest. No issues from my side. Obviously, it would have been a different feeling had it taken me out of the race, but ultimately I benefited from it, and he was penalised. I was a bit surprised to see he'd taken sort of responsibility, so fine. But I haven't spoken to him about it. We actually bumped into each other at the airport the other day, but I actually completely forgot we crashed into each other a few days prior. So, no issues.
Max, good to see you. A couple of weeks on from Spain. We saw your social post, of course, after the race. Any more reflections a couple of weeks on with what's happened? And George just said here in the pen that you saw each other at the airport after the race.
Yeah. We not after the race immediately, but we saw each other because we basically both traveling out. So all good. I mean, I think we all live and learn, right? And explained, immediately on the Monday, my views. So we just move on and try to have a good weekend here.
Mike Seymour asking the questions there to George Russell and Max Verstappen. So, putting that to bed for the time being, we'll see if it...
come on, do we have to?
Well, we'll see. All it has to do is rear its head.
The other drivers, they won't put it to bed. I was just saying, just briefly to Abby, they'll all be there just needling him, wanting him to get that extra penalty point because it's in their favour for him to be a race ban, isn't it? It's playing the game.
Yeah, there was almost a rumour at one point that he was trying to get a race banned for this weekend so he could go off and do the 24-hour Le Mans race, but that didn't quite time well for Verstappen.
Could you imagine that?
I wouldn't put it past him, to be honest, with all his antics on the racing that he does online, to be honest.
It's certainly a passion of his, but look, all focus will be on that track action, and it does give a little bit of an advantage to his competitors. But in terms of who we are expecting, Andrew, to go well based on the characteristics of the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, who should we be looking at this weekend?
Well, it's a circuit with predominantly slow corners, and that's bad news for Verstappen because that's where the McLaren excels. And you would expect them to be the strongest car. I mean, they've been the strongest car on average all season. It's just certain types of circuit that have brought Verstappen into the picture. Those circuits are normally high-speed corner type circuits like Imola, Suzuka, where he won. But this is not one of those tracks. It's kind of like a street type circuit, not fully street circuit. Slow corners, as I say, bumpy, curb riding, all things that the Red Bull doesn't do well. Having said that, in first practice, the McLarens were not quick, but they were trying some new parts on the car, and I wouldn't read too much into those times.
Yeah, FP1 always a tricky one to really get a proper read on. But so then, McLaren looking once again the strong contenders, and Piastri off the back of Spain. Jen, another win, 5th of the season. How impressive has he been this year?
So impressive. I still look back to when all that debacle was going on with him going to Alpine, or was it going to be McLaren, and we were running around the paddock at Zandvoort and trying to uncover what was going on, and that was only a couple of years ago, and now here he is actually challenging and taking the lead in an F1 Drivers' Championship. It's the third year syndrome, I think, though, when you look at Norris versus Piastri. And Piastri has just gone away this winter and grown into himself, and he's so assured of everything he's doing, and you can't really find too much fault with his driving style, the way he's behaving. Okay, there have been a couple of slip-ups which left a door open for Max Verstappen, and he lost that win, I think, where he could have had it. So there have been slip-ups, but apart from that, faultless.
I mean, from knowing Oscar when we were both at Alpine, it's so nice to see, and it's not surprised me. I think he's a driver that I always thought was incredible, and his mindset, how calm he is, but also how he drives. He drives with such precision, and he's so smooth. He's just, I think, a whole well-rounded package, and it was only a matter of time going into F1. In my opinion, at the time, I thought he would be, challenging Lando, and here we see him now. He's leading the the championship, and it's so nice to see, to be honest. He's just generally a good bloke off the track as well.
Well, that's always nice to hear, isn't it? And I think probably made one of the best career moves in Formula One history. Let's get Piastri's thoughts coming into round 10 here in Montreal.
I enjoy being the hunted. I've said it before, it means you're normally doing something right if you're in that spot. So I'm enjoying it, and I think the season's obviously gone very well so far. I think Spain was a great example of that. So try and continue the success and the momentum from there, I guess. I think this weekend should be good for us, hopefully. But I think the competition will be tight. It's a track that tests everything. It's basically a street circuit. It's very bumpy. The weather's often at play, so there's a lot of variables that can spice things up. So I think we'll have some competition from a few teams around us, I think.
Well, those questions about McLaren's strategy with both of their drivers competing for the title continue, and that will be a constant overhang, won't it, Abby? And it's all well and good. They can be friendly. They're getting on. Two different characters. But can you be friendly? Can you hold that friendship as teammates when you're both looking at your first World Championship?
I think you can, but it only takes one little incident and one little tussle on track that can create a bit of a rift in the garage. So I think they've got to be quite sensitive on that. And I think McLaren are aware that they are on the brink of potentially a Nico and Lewis kind of situation. But we can only wait and see how it plays out. But they're both, I think, quite mature and sensible. So we'll see. Well,
thankfully they made it through Barcelona without a Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg coming together and skipping off into the gravel this time around. Let's hear from Lando Norris, who, as a result of not winning Spain, was forced to sit down for an in-depth chat with Andrew Benson. Norris gave his views on Max Verstappen and exactly how McLaren managed this title battle, but he began by speaking about how he feels about the season so far. Second in the championship, trailing teammate Piastri by 10 points.
Of course, it's been a difficult season because we're fighting for a championship. I got a strong teammate. We got strong competitors. I'm racing the best in the world. I don't expect it to be easy, but a few more setbacks along the way than I would have liked. Also more difficulties along the way, but it's still been a successful season. 2 wins, plenty of podiums, and some strong races. I'd say it's been successful. Has it been like the perfect start or the dream start? Maybe not. But it's been a start that is needed in order to fight for a championship. That's consistency, that's strong results, that's a win every now and then, and that's what I managed to do. So not perfect, but something I'm so happy with.
Now you found yourself in a championship fight with your teammate this year. Has Oscar's development surprised you?
I wouldn't say so. I think it's easy. Like if I was on the outside, 100%, I would agree. When I knew what he was capable of doing since year one, then not at all. He came in very prepared, very developed, and extremely strong. So I think knowing what, for me, my year 2, my year 3 was like a few years ago, knowing where he started and what his year 2 and year 3 would be like, I'm not surprised because I know the kind of driver he is. I know what he's capable of doing. I know the talent he has. And I guess I see it almost more than anyone else. I'm the guy looking at what he's doing with his feet and with his hands and how he drives the car. And I'm able to give probably a more accurate answer than anyone else on the outside. But therefore, am I surprised? Then I would say no.
You've talked a lot this year about how a particular characteristic of the car's behaviour has affected you.
Yeah.
Why has it affected you more than it's affected him?
Good question. Don't know the answer. We're 2 different people, I guess. It's the most simple answer. 2 different humans.
Your driving must be.
Yeah, just I don't know how other people drive. Whether it's they drive through the feeling with their hands or their bum, their head. Everyone approaches things differently, and I think that's why you have so many different characters in Formula One, and we're both very different people. But I can't speak on how another person drives. I can only say how I drive and what I rely on, and is very much feeling through the steering wheel. And that's my primary source of feelings of how I can drive a car quickly. I'm sure I can still drive a car very well, but when I'm competing and when you're competing against the best in the world, you need everything to be giving you those cues, to be giving you those best feelings in order for you to be most accurate. And if you're missing that little thing, then it's tough to be the best. It's tough to be the champions and race winners and the people that I'm against every single weekend. So, it's definitely never been a complaint. It's only been this is the reasoning for some of my things. And I've admitted at times when it's been a bit more of a struggle, and I've been honest with those things, but I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for others, and maybe others can be better at driving in different ways. But it's only for me, and speaking on my knowledge of what I like and what I don't like. Most of my feeling comes through my hands, and that's how I drive quickly. And as soon as I lack a little bit of that, then I struggle to drive at that top level that I need to. And I've had to work this year on, leaning on and exploring other ways to get the lap time out of myself, whether that's more of my feeling through my body or my feet, or trying to work with the team on ways to kind of bring that feeling back through the steering wheel. That's all part of the job.
You are, as you say, quite different people, and yet you seem quite complementary as teammates. Do you agree with that, and why do you think it is?
I think it's because I'm a great teammate. That's not being, I don't know, that's not saying anything in the wrong way. I think I'm a guy who honestly just wants to enjoy my time with the people that I'm with. I've always got on well with my teammates, even though your teammate's always your biggest competitor and the guy you want to beat and you need to be more than anyone. I've always wanted to have a good time and have laughs and make jokes and enjoy my life. Like, that's what I'm here to do in the end of the day, is enjoy my life. And we want to do that together. But we are, like you said, different people, different characters, but both guys who know deep down we want to beat each other, but we also want to enjoy our journey in Formula One.
And you're both very accepting so far, at least, of the team approach to letting yourselves race and not having a number one and all the rest of it. It's a very different approach from Verstappen, for example, or Senna before him.
Yeah.
Why are you like that? Why are you not like super selfish like most Formula One drivers?
Because I want to do it my way. As a team, we want to do it our way. And it's what we believe is the best for both worlds. I think as soon as you start to be too selfish as individuals, that's normally when things just go wrong as a team. In the end of the day, I'm employed by the team and I have to drive and race for them. As a number one, it's a constructor. That's what we have to win in the end of the season. But then there's the individual championship. But it's just what we believe is best. And we've seen plenty, I think everyone's seen plenty of championships as teammates turn sour and go in the wrong direction, and that normally leads to many things and like a domino effect of things starting to fail, and that's what we don't want. That's what we try and stay away from. So I think we know we still want to race. We're free to race against each other. We're free to race as individuals, but we also know our sole purpose is to race for McLaren, the team that the name that we race under, and I think that's something we're both very proud of doing.
Is it more difficult, do you think, to race for a championship against your teammate than someone outside like Verstappen? I'm not saying Verstappen's not in the championship fight, by the way.
I think there's pros and cons. The pros, we see everything one another does. We see, we hear, we talk about. So there's more stuff that's out in the open. But at the same time, he's in the same car, and he knows, and I know everything he's doing and everything that I'm doing, and it's hard. Like, the thing that makes it good is also the thing that makes it bad, which is you can see everything that one another is doing. You can learn from one another very easily. But the positive is, as a team, that brings us to performing at a very, very high level. And that's only a benefit for the team.
Verstappen told me last year in an interview that no one overtakes him around the outside.
Yeah.
How do you race with someone like that?
It's tricky and it's difficult, but in the end of the day, I don't think we should expect anything less. When you're racing for wins, you're racing for championships, and you're racing the best in the world. I don't think you can ever expect things to be easy. And I think you learn in go-karting that you can't at all easily overtake around the outside. So that is like a rule number one, but it can be done. It will be done. But I think the number one goal in the end of the race for us is always to finish. That is, I mean, it's a general rule, but sometimes when you try too hard, things can go wrong, and you might not end up finishing your race, even though you might be in the right. Rule number one for us is get to the checkered flag, and therefore sometimes you got to take a safer approach.
What do you make of some of the things he does, like the, as you put it, Mario Kart incident in... I
don't remember saying that.
Just to add to that, sorry, how do you stay friends with him off track while he's behaving like that towards you and other people on the track? How do you separate the two?
I don't think he's done anything untoward towards me. He's raced against me very, very toughly, as he has the right to do. He's made my life very, very tough at times. And he has the right to do that, and I, in the end of the day, have a lot of, and I've said it many times, I have a lot of respect for Max. The driver he is, the person he is, what he stands for a lot of the time, and what he's achieved is 4 world championships. That's 4 more than me, and he's got a lot more race wins than me. He's achieved a lot more, and I admire those kind of things, those stats, and those performances that he's done. But at the same time, everyone does what they believe is best. Everyone does what they believe is right, and they race for themselves. Some may be more aggressive than others. But in the end of the day, also everyone has flaws. Everyone has things that maybe they aren't perfect in. I have them. Maybe he has them. Everyone can choose what they want to believe. But I race in a way I believe is correct. I would race in the aggressive way I believe is correct, and he does the same. And in the end of the day, then the stewards are the ones who decide what is right and what is wrong.
He transparently believes that he's the best racing driver in Formula One. Do you believe that of yourself?
It's a tricky question. I do believe I'm the best driver, maybe not on every given day and every single day. And I think that is then what can make a champion and a multiple world champion, is being able to perform at the highest level every single day. And for some people, they can come into Formula One and do it in 1 year and they can perform at that level. And some people maybe it takes a little bit longer. I do believe that I can drive quicker and perform better than everyone else on the grid. But to perform at that level consistently is the very, very difficult thing. No matter the rain or shine, what the conditions are, what car you're in, who you're against, I think that can be a more defining question or situation. But I don't think I would be here if I didn't believe it. I maybe sometimes find it hard to admit and just say, but I wouldn't be racing in Formula One. I wouldn't be fighting for a world championship if I didn't believe deep down that I could be the best in the world.
Lando Norris speaking to Andrew Benson. I mean, Andrew, that was an incredible interview. It felt very honest, especially at the end there from Lando. What were your immediate takeaways when you got up out of your chair and walked away from that chat?
Well, the first one, Harry, was a bit of a mea culpa, a bit of a drat moment, because when he said that Verstappen hadn't done anything untoward to him, my immediate thought was, well, what about Mexico last year when he basically drove him off the track? And I thought, and then I didn't interrupt him when we were doing the interview, and I kind of wished I had, but I kind of wished I hadn't as well, because the answer was quite nice. And then the second thing was actually something that wouldn't be that obvious to someone perhaps who's not quite who doesn't see these people as often as I do, as I'm very fortunate to do that. I'm very well aware of that. But it's something that he said about it's not important to be right, it's important to get to the end of the race. That's an echo of something that Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, says. And actually, Stella said it to me in an interview I did with him last week, actually, at the factory for something else. And it really stuck in my mind, and it just emphasised to me how much of a culture that Stella has inculcated in McLaren, not just on the technical front and the incredible progress they've made over the last 2 years, but also in terms of the whole team attitude and the way they go racing. And I thought that was a very powerful statement, even if Norris himself wouldn't perhaps have realised it. And actually, interestingly, Oscar Piastri said almost exactly the same words in his news conference yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Jenny, do you think this new culture that Andrea Stella, employed obviously by Zach Brown, brought into that team principal role, do you think that culture, that change in McLaren that we've seen over the last couple of years has really enabled each driver to be who they are and confident, even if that goes against the grain of what we traditionally see a Formula One driver as, which can be selfish and not wanting to talk to the media and all those attributes?
I think it's really taps into Lando Norris and who he is, and it allows Oscar Piastri to live alongside Lando coming into the team and actually be himself as well. And just listening to Lando there, I honestly can't think of an F1 driver who is as talented and is challenging for a title, who is so self-effacing, and he doesn't believe in himself, and that's quite rare. I've looked into the eyes of many F1 drivers, many drivers in motorsport, riders, and they all have this certainness that given the best car, they would be the winner. Undoubtedly, Lando has the best car, and even then, Andrew asking him that question, he doesn't back himself 100%, and I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, Abby, you're obviously a driver. You drive more than any of us do. But the other thing I find interesting, especially it was coming into the build-up into the Monaco weekend, I think it was, where Lando Norris basically said he was off social media and having a detox. Because that's the other thing that maybe sometimes we forget that really has an impact on the kind of modern-day driver. Is there's the pressures of being a racing driver, and now there's the added pressure of the social media that comes with it. And I just wonder, from your aspect too, how do you deal with that? And is it a whole new thing that you have to get to grips with?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say I absolutely loved that interview, and the fact that Lando is so self-aware, and he really, I've never heard a sports person talk like that, let alone an F1 driver. But as you say, there's the social media aspect and pressures that come with it, and obviously everyone really loves Lando, and he's very different, I would say, to some of the F1 drivers. As I said, quite self-aware and is the first person to criticise himself rather than anyone else, and it's really nice to see. And the team aspect with McLaren, I think it's the best place for him. Like I say, they allow him to be himself, and yeah, of course there's a lot of pressures for him, but it sounds like he's in a great place. He just needs to have people, give him confidence, because it seems like he lacks it in himself sometimes.
Well, they've got another weekend fighting out on track ahead of them, so let's see how the McLaren duo fare as they continue to fight for the title. Let's turn our attention though to the ones behind them, Ferrari and Mercedes. Ferrari now surprisingly actually second in the championship when you read it, and Mercedes in third. I mean, we're coming off the back of a triple header, and Mercedes haven't had the best of runs, it has to be said. Bit reliability issues creeping in. I mean, it seems to have disappeared a little bit, Jenny, for Mercedes over the course of the triple header.
Oh, terrible triple header for them, and they really lost a lot of points and a lot of confidence for Kimi Antonelli. He's a debutant, he's a rookie. He's come into this season all guns blazing, thinking, yes, I'm going to nail this. He got that pole in Miami for the sprint race, and ever since that point, it's gone downhill. And he needs to re-establish his confidence and his place in that team. And it's really hard to react when you're in the middle of a triple header. So hopefully that week before and the week after Canada will just give him some breathing space, some time with the team, not as pressurized, to think what's going on, what can I change, what do I need to address here, and get himself back on track. But yeah, woeful for Mercedes and really bad timing for them.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, Andrew, just on the technical side, Monaco, it seemed they had a technical glitch. Russell, retirements for Antonelli and Imola, and Spain with some sort of power unit issue. I mean, are we are they concerned here about some reliability issues now?
Well, they'd have every right to be if they were. They're not saying so, but don't forget as well that Fernando Alonso has had 2 engine issues recently. So in the Aston Martin with Mercedes engines, so they have got some concerns in the back there. But I think more for Mercedes. It's kind of same old in a way. You know, they thought every year they go into a new season with these regulations that have been in place since 2022, and they think they've fixed the problems from the previous year, and then it turns out after a few races that they haven't. Same again this year. You know, last year they were quick when it was cold, they were slow when it was hot. It's been the same pattern this year, and everything's getting a bit more rounded, but they've not made the progress that they hoped they would make. But I think the thing that's the sort of overarching point about all the teams chasing McLaren is I think they've all been caught by surprise by how much progress McLaren made over the winter. McLaren made some quite radical adjustments to their car, particularly around the front suspension, to do with the way it enters corners and keeps a stable, flat aerodynamic platform, and it's really raised the game from McLaren's point of view, in addition to the way they manage tyres. And the others have just been left a bit breathless, and it's exerting pressure in each individual one of those 3 teams chasing McLaren in different ways, as I'm sure we're going to get onto with Ferrari in a second, Harry.
Well, yeah, let's do it. Let's turn our attention to Ferrari now then, who are sitting second in the championship, and it's going to be a critical weekend for them, Abby. For Hamilton as well, on known territory for him. He goes quite well here.
Yeah, but they've not started the weekend off great, with Charles having his incident in FP1. It will be a bit of work for the team to get him out for FP2, and it's really important for them to maximise everything they've got. Obviously, Max breathing down their necks, putting them under pressure, and wanting to get closer to McLaren as McLaren are running away with it a little bit.
Yeah, and Andrew, Ferrari's problem, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know they are struggling, and they are weaker in the slow speed corners, but they're okay over bumps. So could that come back for them this weekend?
I think the car's just fundamentally not quick enough, and there's been a really interesting development this week off track for Ferrari. On Thursday, so yesterday, the 2 leading Italian sports newspapers, Gazzetta dello Sport and Corriere della Sera, both wrote stories questioning Fred Vasseur's future as Ferrari team principal. And when that happens, those papers with their gravitas, and let's not forget that Gazzetta are part of the Ferrari family, when that happens, you know something is going on. Someone at Ferrari has said something to someone at both of those newspapers, and it led to Lewis Hamilton feeling that he had to sort of protect Fred Vasseur yesterday in the news conferences. But even his answers weren't completely unequivocal. They were slightly non-denial denials, as we call them in journalism. So, and I think what's happening there is that Ferrari ended last season very nearly winning the Constructors' Championship. They're only 16 points away from McLaren at the end of last year, and they came into this year basically predicting they would win at least one World Championship. And as I was saying a minute ago, they're not anywhere near that level. And added to that, they've employed Hamilton on a very, very expensive contract. He's earning so much money, especially compared to Leclerc. And it's just not working for him at the moment. And he's having to make excuses for himself about adaptation periods and so on and so forth. Technically, the car isn't in the right place. Upgrades aren't coming very quickly. And Vasseur is now beginning to feel the pressure of that. This is not to say that he's about to be sacked, but this is the sort of situation that we've seen time and time again over the history of Ferrari. When results don't quite go their way, the pressure gets steeper and steeper at Ferrari, and eventually something pops. It hasn't happened yet, but we're all watching that with interest.
Well, when Hamilton was asked in the press conference and told that 2 Italian newspapers were reporting that Ferrari were considering replacing the team principal Fred Vasseur, here is what the 7-time champ had to say about it.
Firstly, I love working with Fred. Fred's the main reason I'm in this team and I got the opportunity to be here, for which I'm forever grateful for. And we're in this together. We're working hard in the background. Things aren't perfect, but for me, I'm as I said, I'm here to work with the team, but also with Fred. I want Fred here. I do believe Fred is the person to take us to the top, and that's that. So it's ultimately nonsense. What people have written. Most people don't know what's going on in the background, and it isn't all easy. Like it's not like it's all the smoothest sailing in the background. We are having to make changes, and it's a lot of work to do, and there is naturally a lot of pressure because we want to win, but that's not any part of the discussion at the moment. So.
Well, Ferrari said the reports were not worth commenting on if team principal Fred Vasseur was being considered by Ferrari to be replaced. But it's not been the best of starts for Ferrari after FP1 and Charles Leclerc's crash, hearing that it might well rule them out for FP2 as well, with a damaged chassis and crack found once they've got that car back to the garage. So it's a double blow so far for Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. But Hamilton hoping to make use of his good success here. First career pole here, and a 7-time winner here as well at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So let's see and monitor that battle behind McLaren with interest with the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes. Let's go a little bit further down the order while we still got a bit of time. Jenny, Aston Martin, they're in a bit of a dire situation.
Look, they've got a driver. They've got 2 drivers. It can't be that bad.
Lance Stroll's back.
Yes. Last time out, Lance Stroll, after qualifying, had a little sulk, and then his hand injury flared up. It was a bit confusing, but he didn't race on race day in Spain. But they have confirmed at Aston Martin that he's back. He's had a procedure on his hand by the same team that operates on all of the MotoGP riders, which is interesting. And he's back now. He's done a test at Paul Ricard, and it seemed to hold up okay. And now he's back out at his home track, taken to this track, and hopefully he'll feel okay at the end of the day. But I think it will take its toll on him. And I did say, but someone else asked me this, I don't know if he'll make it to the end of this season 100%.
Really?
That's just my no comments from the team or anything else. This is just me talking out loud. I don't know how aggressive F1 is and how much that risk is going to have to take if he will be okay for the whole of the rest of the season.
Well, if it's the same person that helped Marc Marquez, he's had a fair few recovery,
few rebuilds.
A few rebuilds in his time. It might be lucky.
Andrew, is there more than meets the eye here? Because it was a bit of an odd situation in Spain that then came the announcement that Lance Stroll was being withdrawn.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Harry, that Aston Martin didn't handle that very well from a PR front. They announced the withdrawal of Stroll quite late on Saturday evening in Spain. The next morning it emerged in the paddock that he'd had a bit of a strop in the garage after qualifying, stormed off out of the garage, missed being weighed. He'd thrown at least one thing around in the garage and sworn. I wrote about that on the BBC Sport website that morning on Sunday in Spain. Caused a bit of a kerfuffle at the team. The team PR man basically said Lance was upset, so didn't deny the story, which I knew was true anyway. Later on, someone within Aston Martin sought to sort of clarify the situation to say that he hadn't sworn at team members and he hadn't broken anything in the garage without actually denying that the strop had happened. I think some people conflated the two things, thought that the hand injury was caused by the strop. It wasn't. I think the strop actually was partially caused by the hand injury. There was a certain bunch of circumstances all came together. He'd been quite slow compared to Fernando Alonso. This injury that he's had since the beginning of 2023 when he fell off a bike and broke both wrists and started the season with 2 broken wrists actually. Drove very well. That had flared up again, and he's gone back to the same MotoGP surgeon, as Abby said, that operated on him in the first place to have something dealt with within his right hand, and he seems to be better this weekend. I don't think there's any question about his involvement in Formula One, certainly not to the end of this season. And if anything, I didn't really understand why Aston Martin was so concerned about the way it looked. To me, there's a narrative in Formula One that Lance Stroll, partly because of his bearing, doesn't really care that much about whether he's competitive or not, or whether he's even in the sport. What this episode has shown is that he does care very much indeed. He's fought to come back again this weekend at his home Grand Prix. So, and it's his father's team, let's not forget, and it was set up for Lance. So he'll be in it as long as he wants to be in it, and the evidence of the last 2 weeks is that he very much wants to be in it. I think there are wider existential questions about why, given that he's never beaten a teammate apart from Sergei Sorokin at Williams back a few years ago. Who can remember him? But in terms of commitment, it's very clear that it's there for Lance Stroll.
But it was a bit of an odd situation there. Aston Martin putting out a couple of statements across the weekend saying that he was obviously withdrawing due to injury, having qualified the car. Then, of course, you can't replace the driver once they've qualified. If you withdraw the driver after practice, then they can still replace the driver ahead of qualifying. But they left themselves down to one car. So there's questions about, well, if there was a wrist injury playing up, as they said it had been over the last few races, could they have done that sooner? And then also some issues around perhaps Lance Stroll, which have been denied by Aston Martin, losing his temper slightly in the garage. So certainly one to monitor over the course of this weekend, with Aston Martin fielding Lance Stroll back for his home race alongside Fernando Alonso, who got his first points last time out as well. So the only way is up. We shall see. The other driver I wanted to highlight is Isaac Hadjar, Abby. If we go to Racing Bulls now, the French rookie, a really impressive triple header, and now everyone's saying, well, don't do any better, because you'll find yourself in that second Red Bull seat if you keep going the way you are.
I think that is the risk, and it's weird to say that the promotion would be a risk, because it just doesn't seem to be working for any of the drivers that make that step into that second Red Bull seat. We've seen Yuki, his triple header was a bit tough. He, I think, qualified P19 last time out. So it's it's going really well for Isaac, and everyone's singing his praises. But don't do too well, Isaac.
I don't think he will move up. I think they'll keep the faith with Yuki Tsunoda, who I think it's his 100th race, isn't it, this weekend? So hopefully he gets some points on the board, steadies the ship, and everything will be back to normal again. But for Hadjar, you're absolutely right. He doesn't want to go too soon. And it must be so difficult, Abby, controlling that, of wanting to be there at the top of your game and thinking that you could be the one to change and you could be the one to challenge Max Verstappen, but not wanting to go too early, because you know that inherently it could damage your whole career if you jump too soon. So I think he's in between a really difficult place.
I think that's the point where you hope that you've got the right people around you that can help make them decisions, or kind of push the narrative a little bit and say, look, you've tried this a few times in the past, it's not gone the right way. So let's try and keep us in the Racing Bulls and keep this trajectory and development that Isaac's been having going, because there's been a few times now where that jump hasn't worked out.
Well, I thought it was very mature from Isaac Hadjar, actually, when asked on that, saying, well, he doesn't feel ready for the Red Bull seat. So
very mature and very astute. Whoever is in his ear is doing a good job.
Mr. Hadjar. Right. Also coming into this weekend, the 2026 calendar has been revealed. We've got Madrid debuting, Imola's gone, Canada's moving along with Monaco, and we've got 2 triple headers towards the end of the year. Jenny, thoughts, feelings on the new calendar?
I think it's brutal towards the end, really brutal for everyone. I mean, the triple headers, and to have 2 of them back to back right at the end of the season, I think that's really harsh. But geographically, it kind of makes more sense. Imola, a lot of people still kicking off that's gone. They're sad that it has. But we knew it was coming, and now we've got 2 Spanish races.
Yes.
Good for Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz. For now.
Barcelona will be here next year, but after that, question marks remain over the Catalunya circuit. Right, okay, I think we've almost made it to the end. Enough time to get your predictions, please, for Sunday's Grand Prix. I want your 1, 2, 3, please. Your winner and your second and third place, and I'll start with Abby Pulling.
Oh, I wasn't fully prepared for that.
Oh, no, exactly. That's why I began with you.
Taking me off guard. I'm going to go for... I think Oscar's on incredible form. I'm going to go for Oscar. I'm going to go for... maybe... Williams. I don't know why.
Williams. Well, then we're good in FP1.
I'm just going to go for, I've got good odds, and then bad odds, I don't know, and then
Norris,
yeah, I think
I'm gonna
Norris.
go for a Norris.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Jenny, let's have him.
Well, Max has won the last 3 races, and we're all saying it's not a Max track, so definitely Max for the win, then Piastri or Norris. I think the last 10 races in Montreal, 7 have been won from pole. So whoever gets ahead on Saturday, I think, has a major advantage.
It's a good place to be. And Andrew, have you made it back in time to give us your quick 1, 2, 3 predictions, please?
I haven't moved, Harry. Norris, Piastri, Leclerc for me. And one thing I would say is look out for Fernando Alonso's Mexican bandit moustache. It's epic.
That is one to watch. I should have put that in my 5 things to watch video. Oh,
Harry,
gutting.
your predictions?
I'm going to go for an Oscar Piastri win. I'm going to go for a Lando Norris second. And I'm going to go with Abbott. I'm going to go for a Carlos Sainz on the podium for Williams, I think. A breakthrough weekend. Let's see. Anyway, I think we're just about out of time. Thanks, Jenny, Abby, Andrew. We're off for a bit of poutine. The race is on Sunday evening on 5 Live. Lights out at 7 p.m. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.